An incredible reunion. Billionaire discovers heartwarming bond with Black Maid and his daughter. Jordan Thompson stood tall against the backdrop of glimmering chandeliers and polished marble floors, a self-made billionaire whose success was an envy to everyone in Atlanta's affluent suburbs. But as he surveyed the extravagant gala, the laughter and luxury around him felt like a mask. Beneath his carefully curated image of success lay a crushing guilt, a monstrous weight that pushed on his heart as people mingled, sipping champagne and showcasing their designer apparel. He knew he had left behind a vibrant, struggling community, and the memories of his childhood flooded back, especially the sound of Joann's laughter intertwining with his own as she scrubbed the floors of their shared past. Joann, a single mother and hardworking maid, had been his steadfast support. She celebrated his victories and wiped his tears. She had shaped his character, far beyond the riches he now possessed. Yet, he had left that slice of life behind, leaving Joann and countless others in their economically challenged neighborhood. In her small home, Joann was urging her daughter Maya to audition for a community arts program that offered a dream Jordan never realized. "You've got the talent, baby. You can soar. Just like you practiced," Joann encouraged, her voice thick with hope. Maya's brilliant voice captured everyone's attention, and Joann's heart swelled with pride. Meanwhile, Jordan heard whispers of the audition and felt an old flame of aspiration rekindle in his chest, instigating a moment of nostalgia that sparked an uncomfortable realization he had abandoned what had once mattered most to him. When Joann decided to come to the charity gala, it felt like a leap of faith. She thought it would bridge the gap for Maya, opening doors into the world of art they never thought possible. Instead, it uncovered a darker side to their intertwining fates. Rumors ricocheted through the crowd of elite guests as they eyed Joann with ill-concealed judgment. Class distinctions reared their ugly heads, and tension ignited as Joann spotted Jordan, dressed in tailored elegance, exuding the polished confidence of his new life. "Jordan!" she called out, her voice filled with a mix of excitement and trepidation, yet met with an awkward silence from him. All those years of loyalty hung by a thread as whispers rippled through the crowd. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. Maya's potential simmered in the background as Joann confronted Jordan. The empowerment she felt turned to defiance as old wounds resurfaced. Their paths had diverged so starkly that her heart ached for recognition both for herself and her daughter. Under the gleaming canopy of the gala, emotions soared and tensions erupted. Voices clashed and the room locked into an uncomfortable hush as Maya took a step forward, her talent about to break through the chaos. Unsure, Jordan suddenly realized he needed to stand up for what mattered most in that moment, not just for himself, but for Joann and Maya too. As the curtain drew back, the audience steadied themselves, awaiting the first note. Would the applause echo for Maya? Or would the specter of their class divide silence her voice forever? Maya took a deep breath, her heart racing as she faced the audience. The room was still, a sea of faces staring back, some with curiosity, others with skepticism. She could feel Joann's supportive gaze burning into her, a reminder of all the sacrifices made to get to this moment. But within her was a storm of uncertainty, battling against the desire to sing the very dream her mother had woven into her life with relentless hope. "Just be you," Joann whispered softly from the side, though the words felt like a lifeline thrown into turbulent waters. As the first notes flowed from her lips, an unexpected hush enveloped the room. Maya's voice soared bright and clear like a beacon cutting through the tension. It wrapped around the onlookers, pulling them into a world where class and color became irrelevant. The lyrics flowed effortlessly as she shared a piece of her soul, drawing from her mother's unwavering belief in her talent. In that moment, Jordan felt a torrent of emotions crash through him. He hadn't heard that note in years, the sound that reminded him of simpler days, when laughter drowned out the worries of the world. He remembered picnics at the park, Joann encouraging him to embrace his dreams while they both scrubbed floors for a living. This was the melody of their past now merging with the future he could help create, but as joy wrapped around Jordan's heart, another part of him remained trapped in the lingering judgments of the crowd. Whispers began anew, cutting through the sweet sound of Maya's performance. Who does she think she is? Why is she here? Jordan's jaw tightened. He had fought tooth and nail for his success, but this was more than just a personal battle, it was about recognition and need to bridge the rift between his past and present. Maya's song reached its crescendo, and for a brief, magical moment, the room melted away. The audience was captivated, and as she finished, a hush fell before the first spontaneous applause broke out. The sound swelled, enveloping Maya like a warm embrace. Joann's eyes shone with tears she could no longer hold back. This was their moment, a victory against the odds. What a voice! Echoed a voice from the back, igniting an avalanche of clapping. Jordan felt the heat of emotion rising in him as he watched Maya take a bow, her face beaming with exhilaration. But alongside that joy was a stinging realization the applause was tinged with disbelief, a reminder of the stereotypes that still loomed large over their lives. Jordan stepped forward, heart pounding as he approached the stage. The clinking of glasses and distant conversations faded as all eyes turned to him. "Excuse me," he announced, his voice cutting through the afterglow of Maya's performance. "This is my daughter. And I think it's time we acknowledge her true talent." The room collectively held its breath, caught off guard by his sudden boldness. Maya's wide eyes met his, filled with a mix of surprise and encouragement. The crowd murmured, but Jordan pressed on. "This isn't just about wealth or status. It's about giving everyone a chance, about recognizing that talent knows no boundaries." The atmosphere shifted, sparking uncertainty and surprise at his declaration. All the years apart shrunk as they stood, shackled by past decisions, yet united in this moment. But the rumbles of discontent began again, an undercurrent that hinted at how hard it would be to reshape their fates. "Jordan." The voice rang out from the crowd, the obvious tension resurfacing, threatening to drown out their brave steps forward. That he looked at Joann and then at Maya. They would need to navigate this tangled web together. How far was he willing to go to stand by them? The answer loomed as the weight of the gala pressed down on his shoulders again. Would he risk everything to rewrite the wrongs of the past? The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. Jordan gulped, looking out across the sea of faces that were momentarily frozen in shock. The discontent surged like a wildfire, stoked by the unexpected revelation. It was then that Jordan noticed a figure emerging from the crowd, an older man with a sharply tailored suit and a face marred by surprise. It was Samuel, a longtime family friend who had always been more of an enforcer of tradition than a supporter of change. His brow furrowed deeply as he approached, each step echoing the weight of disapproval. "Jordan, this is unacceptable," Samuel hissed, his voice laced with disdain. "What on earth possessed you to make such a claim? You know what people will think." The words felt like ice water dousing Jordan's noble intentions. The room still vibrated with Maya's recently sung notes, yet the discordant clamor of judgment threatened to overshadow her triumph. "I don't care what they think," Jordan shot back, his voice rising with indignation. "Maya's talent deserves recognition, and she deserves to be celebrated for who she is, not for where she came from. Think about your standing, your reputation," Samuel replied, his tone warning. "You can't just throw it all away like this. People will remember this moment. What do you expect? That I'll remain silent?" Jordan interrupted, each word dripping with passion. "For too long, I've let fear dictate my actions. Not anymore." Behind him, Maya's expression spoke volumes. She was shocked and moved. This was a side of her father she hadn't seen before. Maybe it was the artists, maybe it was their bond as father and daughter that was bringing out this courageous spirit that had long remained dormant. As whispers rippled through the crowd, he turned, locking eyes with his daughter. "You did this, Maya. You showed them the power of your voice, the power of who you are. You deserve to stand tall." Maya gave a small nod, and even in that gesture, Jordan felt the link between them grow stronger. She was brave. Her vulnerability melded with a strength that he felt he was only beginning to understand. But Samuel wasn't done. It's not just about you, Jordan. Your actions have consequences. You're endangering everything we've built and all the bridges you've crossed to leave your past behind. Those words hit Jordan like a slap. His status with the elite suddenly felt fragile, and he glanced across the room, a mirror filled with expectations, judgments, and the shadows of his upbringing. His heart raced, a mixture of determination and fear wrestling within him. But deep down, a flicker of hope ignited. Maybe it's time to build new bridges, he declared, turning away from Samuel, who stood rooted to the spot, stunned into silence. The applause continued to rise and fall like waves crashing against the shore, washing over Maya's earlier notes and reasserting their power in the room. Jordan stepped further into the light, his voice steady now. This isn't just about my past. It's about change, and about paving the way for talent to shine regardless of background. A woman in the audience clapped slowly, a ripple that escalated until it became a tide of support. Yet, Jordan felt the pushback rise again, a defense of the status quo. "Jordan!" shouted another familiar face from the back. "Your involvement with her will bring shame." Maya's hand tightened into a fist as she stood up straighter. The shadows of doubt threatened to creep back in, but she was ready. Ready to confront those voices, ready to push through. Just then, Joann stepped forward, a fierce protector. "Shame is what demands silence. What Jordan is doing is something beautiful and brave. Our lives aren't defined by what others think." As Joann's words rang true, hope sparked anew. Yet the room felt divided, the battle lines were drawn. Jordan sensed a critical moment unfolding, a chance to bridge old divides and create new futures. Beside him, Maya's eyes gleamed with determination. Together, they would face whatever came next. But the path ahead was murky. Would their revelations lead them closer to acceptance or further into the fray? As whispers buzzed and eyes flickered with uncertainty, one truth emerged: they were ready to fight for their family, for dreams, and for the defining moments that lay ahead. Would they rise together, or would the weight of the past drag them back down? As murmurs rolled through the crowd, Jordan felt both empowered and exposed. The atmosphere was heavy with uncertainty. He turned to the sea of faces, some filled with admiration, others twisted with scorn. Maya stood strong at his side, her resolve shimmering like the faintest glimmer of dawn breaking over a night filled with doubt. "Let us not be divided. We're all here for the same reason," Jordan shouted, his voice carrying the weight of his belief. "Maya represents hope. She represents change. Let us celebrate that." A young man near the front, his arms crossed defiantly, shook his head. "But what do you really know about her, Jordan? You've lived in a bubble. You don't know the struggles, the realities." Jordan instinctively stepped forward. "Neither did I before. But I've learned. We've all got a story. We've all faced battles that have shaped us." Maya felt her heart race as her father continued. She squeezed his hand, feeling the warmth funnel through her, joining their spirits in this unexpected fight. Jordan's courage was intoxicating, igniting something deep within her. She had always longed for validation, but this was far more than mere recognition. It was a stand against years of silence, a plea for understanding. Joann chimed in again, fierce and unwavering. "No one's story is more valuable than another's. We find strength in diversity, in sharing our truths. Look around. Each face here tells a different tale. Why deny that beauty?" As Joann's words lingered in the air, a change crept into the audience. Some faces softened, intrigued by the budding sense of unity. Samuel stood within earshot, visibly shaken. "This isn't a fairy tale," he barked, pushing through the crowd. "You can't help her without dragging down your own name." Yet, instead of cowering, Jordan turned to Samuel, eyes locked in a battle of wills. What's more valuable, a name, or a legacy of kindness and support? If my name falls because I fight for what's right, then so be it. I'll build my legacy on love, not fear. A silence enveloped them, a pause before the storm. Jordan felt the tide shifting, as if the very air around them had begun to breathe hope. Maya, driven by her father's courage, took a step forward, finding her own voice. People think they understand me, but they only see the surface. I am more than a label, I am a daughter, an artist, a dreamer. And guess what? I dream bigger than the boundaries set for me. We can create stories together that challenge what people think they know. What we've been told to believe. Her words cut through the tension, sharp and clear. Gasps of surprise erupted, followed by murmurs of curiosity. In that moment, Jordan realized they were at the precipice of change, teetering between acceptance and animosity. It was Joann who finally broke through with warmth. Imagine the world we can build if we embrace one another. Together, we can break down walls, open doors. Let's write instead of rewrite our stories. The audience buzzed, questions and doubts swirling amidst their heads. A few began to nod slowly. Jordan could feel the shift, the unfolding of something new and exciting. He glanced sidewards at Maya, heart swelling with pride. But just as hope began to bloom, a shrill voice cracked through the atmosphere, pulling everyone back to the tension. And you all think this will just change overnight? It was Ada, a staunch defender of tradition with her arms folded tightly. It's naive to think you can rewrite the past. The air crackled again, heavy uncertainty mixed with anticipation. Would Jordan and Maya's newfound unity withstand the harsh realities of resistance? As the room held its breath, the two exchanged a determined glance, knowing they had so much more to fight for. Would their bond prove powerful enough to defy entrenched beliefs and carve a path toward unity? Only time and the strength of their voices would tell. The crowd seemed to tense, 1,000 hearts beating as one in shared disbelief. Jordan took a deep breath, steadying himself. This moment was a turning point, and he could feel it deep in his bones. Change isn't easy, Ada, he said, his voice calm but firm. It takes courage to face the past, to learn from it and create something better. We're not saying it will happen overnight, but we have to start somewhere. Maya watched her father, admiration radiating from her as she felt the weight of Ada's skepticism. There was strength in confronting doubt, and she wanted to add her voice. Every journey begins with a single step, Maya said, her voice rising above the murmurs. And I, for one, refuse to be bound by what others think I can or cannot do. I will continue to dream, to grow, no matter how rocky the road may be. Isn't that worth fighting for? The audience was alive with whispers, weighed down by their own experiences. Jordan noticed nods flickering among the crowd, a hesitant recognition of the hope he and Maya were presenting. Samuel, however, was still unmoved. He leaned in, voice low but piercing. You think you're heroes? People will react. They'll resist. We're fighting an uphill battle. Joann squeezed Maya's shoulder, grounding her. It's not about being heroes. It's about being human. Together, we can write a narrative that includes everyone, that sees every individual for who they are, not what they represent. She turned towards the crowd again. This isn't just about Maya or Jordan. This is about each one of you, your stories, your lives. Maya saw them now, the young woman in the back with hope shimmering in her eyes, the old man wiping a tear from his cheek. They were listening. She took a deep breath, steeling her resolve, daring to dream bigger than she ever had before. What if we built a world where our differences were celebrated? Where understanding replaced fear? Where everyone is invited to the conversation, and our pasts bind us together rather than tear us apart. As she spoke, a wave of emotion washed over the gathered faces, many nodding purposefully now. Who knew that vulnerabilities could draw people together? Jordan felt his heart racing. But just as hope seemed to gain traction, Ada shot another glance, her expression a mix of anger and concern. But what if you fail? What about the sacrifices? Jordan stepped forward, the tension hanging like fog around them. I've learned that failure isn't the end, it's part of the process. I'd rather try and fall short than live with the regret of never trying at all. We owe it to ourselves and to each other. His word struck a chord. The hum of the crowd shifted from doubt to curiosity, some clearly starting to resonate with the promise of change. Then, a hand rose from the crowd, a timid yet determined gesture. A girl with curly hair began to speak, her voice shaking but resolute. I want to share my story. I want to be heard. It matters, don't you think? The realization struck hard, this was the opening. Would others find the courage to share? As she spoke, whisper after whisper echoed through the crowd, tentative but growing bolder. Voices blossomed like flowers reaching for sunlight, a diverse tapestry of perspectives ripe for sharing. Jordan and Maya exchanged glances, a spark igniting between them. Could they all be part of a greater revolution of empathy, understanding, and unity? But just as the first stories began to unfold, shadows stirred in the periphery of the crowd. More resistance loomed, ready to challenge this fragile burgeoning moment. Do you really think they'll listen? That they care? Came a voice from the back, dampened yet charged with skepticism. As the room transitioned from doubt to determination, one thing was clear, the real battle for change was just beginning. Would they fight together, or would fear pull them apart? The energy shifted as they stood on the brink of something transformative. What awaited them would test their resolve and the bonds they'd begun to forge. Would every voice rise up, or would the shadows win this round? The girl's voice hung in the air like a delicate thread, pulling on everyone's heart. More hands shot up now, eager to share, but uncertainty buzzed just below the surface. Jordan felt the electricity of possibility mingled with fear. He lifted his gaze, scanning the crowd, noticing the hesitant faces, fear flickering in their eyes. Okay, let us hear it. Maya encouraged, her enthusiasm contagious. Your stories matter. They shape us. One voice broke through the hesitance. I don't know if anyone would care about what I have to say, a middle-aged man in a worn jacket admitted, shifting his weight from foot to foot. Jordan stepped forward, his expression earnest. It's not about whether we care or not. It's about you claiming your space and being brave enough to speak your truth. You might inspire someone else or perhaps even yourself. The man hesitated, glancing around. Slowly, he nodded. Okay, I'll try. As he began to whisper snippets of his life, a ripple of bravery surged through the gathering. Another voice joined in, then another, as people began to share stories of their struggles, their victories, their dreams. The air thickened with emotion, laughter and sorrow intertwining, and a sense of unity began to weave through the crowd. Samuel stood off to the side, his arms crossed as if waiting for the moment to strike back. But even he couldn't hold back the swell of emotion stirred by others' courage. Joann caught his eye. See? She said quietly, as a tear slipped down her cheek. This is what we can do together. He looked at her, uncertainty etched on his face. But what if it's not enough? What if all this is just a momentary flicker? Jordan, now emboldened by the stories blooming around him, turned to Samuel. We have to start somewhere to make a lasting change. Every flicker can ignite a fire, but it takes us working together to feed that flame. Maya stepped beside her father, feeling a mix of urgency and hope. Every voice matters. Even if we stumble, we keep moving forward. Change grows where voices rise together. In the background, the whispers transformed into gentle applause as every brave soul wrapped their truth in words. Jordan's heart raced as he recognized the power they were unleashing. This moment felt almost sacred, a communion of lives that had long been silenced. But in that moment of connection, the shadows took form and began to converge. A group, faces stony with displeasure, pushed their way to the front, armed with indignation, challenging the rising tide of truth. This is nonsense. One shouted, his voice gruff. You're wasting your breath. This so-called unity ends here. A chill rippled through the crowd, breaking the spell of warmth that had gathered. A knot formed in Jordan's stomach. It was clear this wasn't just a conversation about change, it was becoming a battleground for beliefs. Maya squeezed her father's hand, feeling the intensity swell. We can't let fear silence us. We have to stand strong. But the disruptor's presence loomed like a dark cloud. Would the courage shared so freely be enough to withstand this storm? Could they rise above the challenge, or would doubt snuff out the light they had kindled? With adrenaline coursing through him, Jordan took a step forward. We won't back down. We refuse to be silenced. Let us show them the strength of our voices. Tension crackled in the air as he faced the opposition. The crowd held its breath, the momentum swaying. Would they stand in unity, or would the fear of disruption fracture the newfound connection they had fought so hard to build? The air was charged, thick with anticipation. Silence wrapped around the gathering, every face turned to Jordan, who stood at the forefront. Time seemed to stretch as he held their gaze, his heartbeat echoing in his ears. He could feel the warmth of unity flickering just behind him, ready to ignite if he could harness it. The man who had dared to speak, the one with the worn jacket, was still standing, his shoulders tense but resolute. I grew up in a neighborhood that didn't give me much, he began, eyes glistening with the effort. People told me I'd never amount to anything. But I kept trying, like all of you. Like all of us. Maya held Jordan's hand tighter as the crowd started to murmur in support. Those around them were leaning in, eyes wide and ears attuned. The tension with the disruptors felt less daunting when bolstered by voices sharing heart and human experience. Truth is, I lost my job. My kids saw me come home defeated, the man continued, his voice cracking. But then I realized, even in those dark moments, there's a light. We have each other. We can lift each other up. His words sparked something beyond the immediate resonance of shared experience that swept through the crowd. Jordan felt the thrum of collective empathy rising, swirling around him like a wild wind. Another voice joined in, a young woman with wild curls. I used to feel invisible at my own job. She shouted, her tone fierce yet vulnerable. But then I found a group just like this one. And I realized that my voice mattered too. Together, we can challenge the noise. The disruptors seemed hesitant now, the faces of their ranks less resolute. They shifted, glancing at each other, the fight suddenly feeling less assured. Jordan could see doubt creeping in where anger once soaked their features. Together. Maya echoed the sentiment. Together, we are more powerful than fear. We stand for each other, for every story shared. The murmur of the crowd surged in agreement, a chorus of recognition drenching the space. The chestnut-haired man, who had found his courage earlier, took a step closer. Let us show them who we really are. He proclaimed. Let us take this moment and take it back. We are stronger together. Jordan felt a rush of hope. Perhaps they could rise above the darkness. Perhaps the warmth of connection truly could shield them against the chill of discontent, but just as Jordan's heart began to soar, a voice emerged from the disruptors. A woman with steely determination stepped forward, clasping her hands. You can't just silence the truth. What you call fear is our reality. We won't back down without a fight. The crowd jolted, torn between two worlds, one of hope, the other steeped in division. Jordan's grip on Maya's hand tightened. He could feel the fight within him rising again steadily, like a wave pooling at the edge. But doubt flickered within him too. What if their stories weren't enough? What if the battle for belief took more than just shared words? As the voice of dissent grew louder, anger and passion intertwining in the heated air, Jordan's mind raced. He needed to act to ensure their unified spark wouldn't be drowned. We stand for hope. He shouted, lifting his voice above the din. We stand for each other. Even if it's hard, we won't back down. Not today. The crowd roared back, a wild and organic sound, a heartbeat thrumming against the dark. For a moment, everything else faded: the disruptors, the noise, the fear. Only unity remained. But just as the atmosphere shifted, hope cracked open like a dam. A thought glimmered in Jordan's mind. What if they pushed through the opposition? What if they reached those behind the disruptors? The battle wasn't just outside but within the hearts of everyone there. And if they could touch those hearts, could they truly change everything? Would they emerge united? With a deep breath, Jordan prepared for the next step, feeling the weight of his decision settle heavily on his shoulders. Would they dare to reach out, or would unity be lost in the struggle? The roar of the crowd swirled around Jordan, a tide of energy that seemed both exhilarating and terrifying. He could see faces lighting up with shared understanding, while others still held the weight of opposition. The moment felt electric. But where to go from here? The question nagged at him, another layer of doubt creeping into his resolve. Maya's grip remained strong. He met her gaze, finding not just support but also a whispered challenge. Her eyes urged him to act, to bridge the chasm that separated them. There was a glimmer of vulnerability in her expression too, a shared fear of what could happen next. Yet there was determination there as well. They both knew they had to try. "Let us reach out," Jordan said, his voice now low but steady. "Let us show them our hearts. Maybe it's not enough just to fight back. Maybe it's time to reach out, even to those who disagree." He felt the crowd's gaze pivot, curiosity mixing with wariness. What did he mean by that? The murmurs quieted, hanging in the air like unspoken questions. Jordan took a step forward, his heart pounding wildly. He pointed to the disruptor woman who had spoken against him earlier, her fierce demeanor no longer quite as daunting. "I don't want to fight you. I want to understand," he called out, his voice striving to break through the walls that had been built. "I want to hear your truth, just like we're sharing ours. Maybe we're not so different after all." The crowd collectively held its breath. Jordan's pulse thrummed in his ears, scared of what might happen next. Would she accept the olive branch, or would it lead to more division? The disruptor woman's brow furrowed, uncertainty crossing her face. She hesitated, the anger seeming to dissolve slightly as she regarded the crowd's expectant faces. Finally, she took a small step toward him. "I don't trust your intentions," she replied, her voice steady, but tinged with vulnerability. "People like you talk a good game. But it all feels hollow when I see my neighborhood struggling, when I see friends losing hope." Jordan opened his arms slightly, inviting rather than defending. "I can't change the past, but I want to listen. I want to know what your reality is. We need each other to move forward." The murmurs in the crowd grew. Some voices were supportive, others still skeptical. Maya leaned closer to Jordan, her expression a blend of pride and anxiety. She wanted him to succeed but feared the outcome as well. I need to think," the woman finally admitted, her voice trembling ever so slightly. "No one has ever asked me that before." Tension ebbed a little, the air shifted. Jordan sensed a chink in the armor of her resolve. "Let us start right here," Maya chimed in, engagingly stepping forward. "We can't change everything overnight, but we can share our stories. How we got here. If we can make connections, we can build something." Jordan's heart soared slightly. They were making progress, however small. Other disruptors watched with narrowed eyes, considering the implications of this shift. Suddenly, a younger man from the audience yelled out, "I want to share too." His voice cut through the charged atmosphere, full of raw energy. "I've faced doubts and loss. We can build strength together if we sit down and talk about it." Jordan felt the crowd's momentum shift again. Voices surged forth, one after another, different experiences intertwining with possibility. But just as a ripple of hope spread across the gathering, a figure emerged from the back, a tall man, his expression unreadable, stepping forward with purpose and authority. He looked like he belonged to a different world entirely. "Stop this!" He commanded, his voice booming. You think you can change things with words? You think they want peace? An uneasy silence descended, everyone's gaze snapping to him. Who was this man, and what would he do next? Jordan braced himself, feeling the weight of a fresh challenge. Was this the turning point they all needed, or would it send them spiraling back into chaos? The man's presence dominated the space, his authoritative voice slicing through the hope that had begun to form. The crowd shifted uneasily, glances darting between Jordan and this newcomer, whose tension felt as palpable as the tension in the air. Jordan's heart raced, a storm of uncertainty brewing inside him. Who are you? Maya asked, her tone laced with defiance. She stepped beside Jordan, her unwavering strength a reminder that they were not alone, even against this imposing figure. The man glared at her, dismissive. Names don't matter. It's the truth that counts. You think turning this place into an emotional therapy session will change anything? He scowled, eyebrows knitting together. It won't fix the broken systems. It won't feed the families starving on the streets. You're wasting your breath. Jordan took a deep breath. Anger quivered beneath his skin, but he fought it down. Maybe it won't change everything, but it's a start. If we don't speak, if we don't listen, how will we even know where to begin? The man regarded him coolly, arms crossed tightly over his chest. Instead of retreating, Jordan pushed forward under the scrutiny, wanting to connect, wanting to keep the door open. Tell me, Jordan continued, what do you believe will work? We all have our realities. Yours matters, too. You act like this is pointless, but there are people out here who just want to be seen, to be heard. I'm willing to find that common ground with you. Maya glanced toward the disruptor woman. A flicker of hope had sparked in her eyes, and Jordan felt the crowd still shift subtly again. This man's harsh words had, after all, drawn people in. Perhaps the tension could become fuel for understanding instead of dividing them even further. You think people want to sit and share their hearts? You're misguided, the newcomer shot back, frustration thick in his voice. What they want is change action. Not words that float off into the air. A murmur began among the crowd. There were agitated nods, but also those answering in quiet dissent. Jordan caught some eyes that sparked with understanding, even interest. Action starts with dialogue, he said gently. We need to know each other's stories to move forward into the action you're demanding. Isn't that worth exploring? The energy was shifting again. Flames of impatience and annoyance flickered, but there were embers of curiosity sparking through too. Jordan felt them. He could sense the divide between those who wished to stand firm against this man and those who considered the potential of understanding. Then, unexpectedly, a voice rang out from the back. He's right. It was the young man from earlier who had spoken up. We need those conversations to break down barriers. We need to hear where people are coming from. This is how movements begin. The crowd rippled with a mix of support and skepticism, but their whispers grew louder. Jordan's heart hammered against his ribs. Could this work? Could something good emerge from all this? For the first time, the tall man faltered, just a step behind the others, uncertainty flickering in his dark eyes, but before he could gather himself, the disruptor woman spoke again. Let us start with our stories. If I don't speak my truth, how will you know? How will things ever change? Her voice grew stronger, the questioning shimmer of vulnerability replaced by assertiveness. The crowd pulsed with collective energy. What would come next hung in the air, charged with possibility. As the tall man opened his mouth to protest, all eyes shifted toward him again. What path would he choose? Would he cling to resistance or step forward into an uncharted territory of understanding? And just as the moment of decision hung in the balance, another figure stumbled into the clearing, a girl, breathless and wide-eyed. Dad! She shouted, her voice cutting through the tension with a plea. You have to listen. Jordan felt the world shift as all eyes turned toward the newcomer, the full weight of expectation resting on her fragile shoulders. What was she about to reveal? The room fell silent as every eye zeroed in on the girl, her urgency palpable. She stood with tangled hair and flushed cheeks, like a burst of sunlight cutting through a storm. Jordan squinted, trying to catch a glimpse of her face, feeling the weight of his heart beat slowly, deliberately in his chest. "Dad!" She shouted again, her voice quivering with emotion. "I've been listening to everything, you're both right. But we can't let this moment slip away." Jordan's breath hitched. She was here, stepping into the very space where fear and hope clashed, and he felt his resolve amplify. Who was she? Maya. "This is my daughter," Jordan exclaimed, astonishment bursting forth. He realized that they were united, all of them standing tall even in their uncertainties. Maya stepped forward, her hand gently landing on the girl's arm. Her presence felt grounding, like a flame when the world felt too dark. The girl turned to Maya, surprise shifting to understanding. "You're Maya. Your voice, it's amazing." They shared a moment of connection, eyes sparkling, like two threads weaving into the larger tapestry of their shared experiences. "Thank you," Maya replied, her tone softening. "We're all here to make a difference. Each voice matters." Jordan watched as the crowd seemed to breathe again, edged with fascination. It was almost as if this unexpected bond had ignited a spark that could melt through the barriers. The tall man's scowl was dampening, absorbed by a shimmer of doubt. "And we're not a threat," the girl continued, her nervousness beginning to dissolve. "We want to stand with you, not against. We can share our stories together, learn from one another. That's how we change." The words hung in the air, swelling with hope, pressing against the fear, the uncertainty. The crowd began to murmur, the whispers transforming from skeptical to curious. Each statement unraveled the fabric of division, threading them closer together. "Maybe it's not just about fighting or fixing everything at once," Jordan said, his voice rising amidst the slowly stirring crowd. "But creating a dialogue, a space for connection. This is where change begins." As he spoke, he observed the tall man, doubt danced across his features. Would they relent? Discover a pathway fraught with complexity, yet rich with potential? The disruptor woman, finally finding her voice again, nodded slowly, her defenses beginning to falter. "It wouldn't hurt to listen just this once," she said hesitantly, the words slipping through her lips like the first drop of rain after a long drought. The collective energy shifted again, pulsations of hope sparking throughout the crowd. "Let us do it," the younger man shouted, emboldened. "Let us share why we're here, our struggles, our victories. Every voice counts," Joann added, stepping forward with an undeniable force, head held high and heart wide open. "We can write new stories together, stories that embrace our differences." Jordan felt the surge of unity igniting the room. It was a fire that threatened to engulf doubt and fear, turning them into something more, something transcendent. All around him, faces softened as vulnerability became the bridge they needed to connect, the tall man's grip on disbelief loosened. What if it does matter?" he murmured, almost to himself. "What if we actually try?" A hesitant wave of agreement rippled through the crowd, fingers raising in shared solidarity. One by one, voices began to rise, intertwining into a profound chorus of human experience, everyone, unified in their longing for understanding despite their differences. "I lost my job to the pandemic, but it made me realize the value of community," a middle-aged woman said boldly, her words resonating with the crowd. "I fought against stereotypes my entire life, determined to show my worth," chimed in a young man with a cracked voice, smoothened by determination. As stories poured forth, so did the collective sense of empathy, flowing like a river through the crowd. Each shared truth carved a path away from conflict, creating bridges where walls once stood. Jordan stood at the center, feeling the swell of their stories empower him. He caught a glance from Maya, her eyes shone with a light that filled him with pride. His heart swelled at the thought, they weren't fighting alone. Each story, each voice, stitched them together, and when the tall man stepped forward again, his demeanor had changed. "Maybe, just maybe, words can be the first step," he declared, looking around at the gathering. I didn't believe it before, but now, maybe we can find a way to build something that works." The applause erupted not just for the performances but for the collective bravery displayed with each brave voice, every choice to engage and embrace. The room buzzed with a sense of hope as Jordan, Maya, Joann, and all those who had stepped forward unleashed waves of warmth that filled the space once heavy with doubt. As they stood together, a tapestry of life diverse and vibrant, they knew they had begun something beautiful. United in their vulnerability, they had transformed a moment of conflict into a dawn filled with possibility, a reminder of their shared humanity. And in that moment, Jordan knew one thing for certain: they were ready to rise, not just as individuals but as a community woven together by their stories, stronger than the circumstances that had divided them. As he basked in that warmth, he realized this wasn't just the end. It was merely the beginning of a journey where every voice mattered, where they would fight for one another together. The music of change had started to resonate, echoing beyond the walls of that gala and into the world waiting just outside. Hope lit their path ahead, and as the night wore on, Jordan embraced the powerful truth, feeling it wrap around him like a warm embrace: the real wealth lay in connection. Now it was up to them all to keep that fire alive. You need to subscribe now to follow this incredible journey forward. This is the moment to show your support by leaving a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment below about your feelings on this emotional finale, and don't wait not even one more second to share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation.